Hey gang, welcome to Mzansi and USA News. This should be a short reaction video to something that the current Premier of Gauteng, Mr. Lesufi, Panyaza Lesufi, has said in this video. I want you to pay attention to his assertions. He was being interviewed by Sizwe. Sizwe is a son of Dr Mpofu, the advocate of the EFF. Let's tune in.
Racists are mindless, useless, poor thinkers, selfish and greedy. They feel everything belongs to them and them alone. Any other person must join on their terms. So you must be this black person that listens to them, dance to their tune. And I'm not that person. I'm not going to do that. I'll never dance to a tune of a white person who's racist in particular. I'll never dance to a tune of somebody who feels that they're superior. I will never dance to a tune on somebody that feels that they've got the birthright to control our lives and other things. They might have oppressed our grandparents and succeeded. They might have oppressed our parents and succeeded. We tested them and defeated them. And they can't reverse that defeat by wanting to oppress our children.
Now, it's quite shocking to me what he just said on that video. For a simple reason. He is lying through his teeth. Yes, we were oppressed during apartheid. And yes, white people oppressed our grandparents, our great-grandparents, all the way to the time Jan van Riebeeck landed in the Cape, and then there were subsequent wars, because oppression did not take place immediately, okay? Nevertheless, the point is, he said we defeated them. That's the point that I want to address, because you can't miss that this is a premise from which Julius Malema speaks as well. And my fellow countrymen, I would have you reminded that a lie, as Goebbels once said, Goebbels was Hitler's propagandist. He used to say, you tell a lie long enough and people will believe it. Well, I am here to tell you the truth, that at no point in time did black South Africans defeat white South Africans. There was never a war in South Africa that led to white South Africans being defeated in the battle. This couldn't have happened in any case for this simple reason. The South African Defence Force was the most powerful army in Africa, amongst the best in the world. They had a nuclear weapon to which they were assisted to develop it by what is now today called apartheid Israel. This is very important for you to know, that this same government to which we are referring is the government that went to Harare and bombed into smithereens Umkhonto we Sizwe's camps in a foreign country, in a sovereign nation, and Mugabe could do nothing about it. This is the same army that brought Samora Machel's plane from the heavenlies, a president of a sovereign nation, Mozambique, and Mozambicans could do nothing about it. So, could South African Defence Force be defeated by APLA, which is Azanian People's Liberation Army, or by Umkhonto we Sizwe? No, not in a million years, and that's a fact. Now, I want you to understand very carefully what I'm saying to you. I am not dissing Umkhonto we Sizwe, I'm not dissing APLA. They just were not in the same wavelength. You could not talk about them and talk about SADF in the same breath, unless you are delusional. So, what really happened here? How was Nelson Mandela released from jail? Was he released from jail because our bricks were too much for those who were carrying R5 rifles, having Caspars, and all the weaponry at their disposal? No, of course not. So why was Mandela released from prison? Mandela was released from prison. Before I tell you why he was released from prison, the other lie you'll hear from the ANC is that no, our pressure was too much and they were sanctioned. Wait a minute. Your pressure, sanctions, those are two different things. Your pressure was nothing to the government of apartheid. Our pressure was nothing to the government. I know this because we were burying people every flipping weekend who were killed by the machinery of apartheid. We completely, as the children of Israel, when they saw them in front of the Canaanites, they said we were like grasshoppers. That's exactly what we were like in comparison to the system and its army. We couldn't defeat them in a million years. Please get that in your head clearly and understand. you see what is on your screen is a 1992 South African apartheid referendum to end apartheid. Who did this? De Klerk did this. Who did this? Afrikaners and the English did this. Did they do this because they were defeated? No. They did this through a vote. And in case you don't know, there was a yes or no in this vote. Meaning, had they voted no, we would still be under apartheid to this day. To then say, no, but they were being pressurized by sanctions from who? There's no African country that could successfully sanction South Africa. So from who? From America. Aha, now you are talking sense. Because Americans are 75% white. So you telling me that Europeans were receiving sanctions from other Europeans? Are you serious? Is that a statement then that can lend you saying we defeated them? I'm trying to show you that his statement has absolutely no basis on fact. The sanctions against South Africa were there for many, many years. They were on and off, on and off. I remember Ronald Reagan talking about them. I remember Margaret Thatcher talking about them and so on and so forth, who was the Prime Minister of England. Nevertheless, the point is this. De Klerk campaigned on a ticket of releasing Nelson Mandela in 1988. And P.W. Botha, as sitting president, said Mandela would die in jail. De Klerk campaigned in the Nationalist Party to be president on the ticket that he was going to release Nelson Mandela. Check your history, and your father or your brother, if they are as old as me, they know this truth. Because they were here, they heard in the news what to me, to my ears, sounded like a miracle, where a would-be president was campaigning against a sitting apartheid president in the name of, I'm going to release the Nelson Mandela, who is a trump card for you to remain a president and to sustain apartheid and all the political prisoners. That was 1988. In 1989, February, de Klerk had already won elections. He became the president of the country. And that year, those of us who were old enough saw Raymond Mhlaba being released from Robben Island, Ahmed Kathrada, Govan Mbeki, that is Thabo Mbeki's father, Walter Sisulu, that is Lindiwe Sisulu's father. We saw all of these people being released from prison simply because of F.W. de Klerk. And then in 1990, de Klerk, the commander-in-chief of the most powerful army in Africa, released Nelson Mandela and the rest of political prisoners. And then in the same year, 1990, he started a campaign that would lead or culminate to this 1992 referendum, where he said to white people who were the only ones who were allowed to vote, I'm going to have a referendum wherein you will decide whether you want to end apartheid or not. So apartheid was not ended because Mkhonto Sizwe or any other military pressurized the government of apartheid. That's a lie. If you want to believe it, go ahead, believe it. That is why I always say to people, remember, when people speak in the public domain, you cannot speak as though we won a war here. What the ANC did since they took power under Mandela and Thabo Mbeki was a clear understanding of the negotiated settlement and the sensitivity aspects of the deal that was made. And they ought to have continued there because Mbeki managed to put 6.5 from Mbeki to Mandela, from Mandela to Mbeki, 6.5 million black people into the middle class. So that you needed to continue with it systematically. Jacob Zuma needed to continue there to take people from poverty backgrounds like myself, place them in the middle class, and continue with Ramaphosa Party. Guess what happened? When Zuma took over, he started focusing on apartheid because he couldn't grow the economy and reversed all the gains and divided us right back as though 1994 did not take place. That's why we are where we are today, having radicals during the Freedom Day like Malema, like now what you saw here, a premier who's willing to lie and say, we defeated them. How did we defeat them? They are the ones who relinquished power by going to this referendum. Now let's read this because this is also documented for those of you who think I'm making this up. A referendum on ending apartheid was held in South Africa on the 17th of March 1992. The referendum was limited to white South African voters who were asked whether or not they supported the negotiated reforms begun by the state president F.W. de Klerk 2 years earlier, in which he proposed, that is, de Klerk proposed to end the apartheid system. Remember, this is a guy that did what? Campaigned on releasing Mandela, and he kept the end of his bargain and all the political prisoners. So he proposed to end apartheid system that had been implemented since 1948. The result of the election was a large victory for the yes. De Klerk campaigned for this yes. None of us had a say on whether or not apartheid was going to end. Can you see how ridiculous the statement, we defeated them? This is a problem I have with adults telling stories to us when we ourselves are parents, as though we're supposed to believe their lies. He is a premier of the hub of the economy in Africa. He doesn't know how to run the province. They've just had a vote of no confidence on the capital, the city of Tshwane. All what they are doing, look at what he did when he formed his MECs, right? He took that didn't work for the past 15 years, from Zuma's time to Ramaphosa's time. He still continued with what is generally known as Alex Mafia. Can you see that? And what did he do? He kept all the DA MECs out. Why? Because they are hiding something. They know if they had given the DA respective positions into the government, whatever it is that they've been doing in power would be unearthed. And I can tell you now, there's a lot of shenanigans that all what you need is change of the guard. You'll be amazed by the filth that is in Gauteng. So instead of running Gauteng on clean governance and improving himself and proving that the 400 or so million for which he is alleged he misappropriated or was misappropriated under his leadership in the Department of Education, and proving all that to be a lie, what is he doing? He's coming out to be a Freedom Day revolutionary. Good people who have been free since 1992. Apartheid ended in 1992. That's when we were given a right to vote. 1994 is just a date that the actual right which was given to us in 1992 was exercised. Now, of course, you can call me whatever you want to call me. The truth is staring you right in your face. We never defeated white people. Let's not behave as though we did. Okay? And I'm not quite sure what is this need to have defeated white people. White people conquered us all those years ago when they had inferior weapons. How were we going to defeat them when they had nuclear weapons at their disposal? That does not even make sense. Yet people believe it. How strange. Now check this out. Here are the results. Because some people say, yeah, white people are all racist. No. 2/3 of them, 68.73%, voted for you and I to be liberated. That's why we had 1994. Because 2/3 whites voted for to take all the power that they had at their disposal without any shedding of blood and giving it over and giving us, knowing fully well that we were majority. I don't want you to lose sight of that. They knew that we were majority. They knew what would happen if they gave us the opportunity to vote, and they were okay with that. In any case, they reconciled themselves to the consequences. The sooner we as black people, like Panyaza, reconcile ourselves to that and move on, the better the Rainbow Nation will start working in South Africa. The more or less, the more understanding will come even for our children, because our children don't understand what's happening. They've got white what to call friends, right? They play together at school and so on and so forth, but yet there are people who are 56 years old like Panyaza who are coming up in the public domain claiming victories. I mean, it's quite embarrassing for his children to learn their history and get to know that white people were never defeated by black people in South Africa, and yet you have Panyaza talking like this. Okay, I said it was going to be a short video. I'm already on the 15th minute. Let me love you and leave you. You can, make your comment of what you think down below. But it's pretty clear in our history. We never won a war against white people. We didn't have a hope in a million years to win a war against white people. Why? The entire Western democracy was against us. Weapons had to be smuggled. We had a fortified border. All the SADC region couldn't penetrate our border. We had such a strong military army, or let me put it this way, the government of apartheid had such a strong military that they were even bombing SADC countries that were housing Umkhonto weSizwe. So let's get things straight here. Why is this video necessary? It's necessary so that we give credit to where it's due. If we do not appreciate the role of the Afrikaner men and the white people in our liberation, then we are always going to be having this divide that is amongst us simply because we are living in the history. That history includes them making the decision to go to the referendum. That history includes them making a decision to end apartheid. Yes, our history is a very painful history, but it includes them ending apartheid. Let's not therefore glorify and hide our failures to grow the economy now that we are in power. To grow the economy by Baker was growing the economy 5% year on year. That's our problem, good people. Let's not run away that our problems began 15 years ago when Zuma took over. What Ramaphosa pronounces 9 wasted years. Well, Ramaphosa has 7 wasted years. He's been in power for 7 years. What did he do for the youth of this country? That's where our problem is. That's why there was no outcries for land. Do you know how many hectares of land that were bought under Mandela and Mbeki, under willing buyer and willing seller? They are being kept by government at their disposal. For what good reason? Why are those farms not being given to those blacks who want farms? Because I know for a fact, I'm black. I know a lot of black people who are not interested in farming. So even the cliche of the EFF that people are going to eat from land, Zimbabweans have land and they are hungry. They are here in our country. They are busy right now slaughtering elephants. Are you following me? Now, I'm not mocking them, but I'm mocking the idea that if you have land, you are going to eat it. No, you're not going to eat land. Land needs to be developed. The utensils to develop land are quite expensive, and government has no money. Government has to tax you and I to use that money, rather to have money in their coffers to use it. That is why communism doesn't work. You misuse any money in any case that you didn't earn it. But Julius Malema has never worked anywhere in his entire life. He wouldn't know that. I digress. The point is that Panyaza Lesufi is talking nonsense in his dreams. He wouldn't be alive if there was a hot war in South Africa. Believe you me, he wouldn't be alive. He wouldn't be a premier. So he must tell the truth and thank F.W. de Klerk for making the decision that he did, and thank the UK and thank Americans for putting pressure financially on the government of apartheid, because believe you me, China was doing business with South Africa, with the apartheid government of South Africa, the very China that today they want to emulate. Yeah, but nevertheless, guys, let me love you and leave you. It's a lie that we defeated the government of apartheid. We never did.